My parents cut me off as a gift for my birthday, so I gave them the ultimate consequence. On February 18th, my 20th birthday, my parents called while I was walking to my morning lecture. My mom said happy birthday, then immediately launched into how I was relying on them too much and needed to experience the real world. They'd pay my rent and phone until the end of February, then I was completely on my own. My dad added that they still loved me and wanted me to stay in touch, but this would teach me independence. I had 11 days to figure out my entire life. I begged them to reconsider, explaining I was in the middle of exam season and had no time to find work. They said real adults handle pressure and hung up. I ran to student services that afternoon, asking for emergency housing since I couldn't afford my flat. They said without proof of being cut off, I didn't qualify for assistance. I emailed my parents begging for a letter confirming they'd stopped support so I could apply for emergency funding. They replied, saying that providing documentation would defeat the purpose of learning independence. They actually wrote that helping me get help wasn't helping. I spent 3 days calling every landlord in town, looking for something I could afford on my non-existent income. They all wanted deposits, references, and proof of employment. I applied for 20 jobs and got nothing, because everyone could tell I was desperate. My roommate Jess found me crying over my laptop, trying to figure out how to survive on the 400 pounds in my account. She asked what happened, and I explained everything. She said that was insane and called her mom, who was a social worker. Her mom said what my parents did might violate education support laws if they'd claimed me as a dependent. That gave me an idea. My Uncle Craig was an accountant who did my parents' taxes. He'd always been kind to me, sneaking me money for textbooks when my parents said I should get them from the library. I called him, explaining my situation, and asked if he knew anything about their finances that might help me. He went quiet, then said he'd look into something and call me back. 2 days later, Craig called asking for my student email and registration numbers. He'd found something interesting. My parents had been claiming education tax credits for me for 3 years, worth about £8,000 annually. They'd also applied for and received a parent learning allowance from my dad's company, specifically meant to support children in university, another $5,000 a year. They'd been collecting £13,000 yearly to support my education, while only spending $8,000 on my actual expenses. Craig had copies of everything because he'd warned them this was tax fraud if they weren't using the money for my education. They'd assured him it all went to me. The kicker was they'd already filed for this year's credits in January, claiming they'd be supporting me through my entire 3rd year. Craig gave me copies of everything and advised me to contact my university's legal aid. I met with the legal aid advisor, who looked at the documents and immediately called the university's financial office. Within hours, I had emergency funding approved and temporary campus housing. The university's lawyer sent my parents a formal letter stating they were obligated to provide the support they'd claimed on taxes or face investigation for education benefit fraud. My parents called me, screaming that I'd involved their personal finances. I said independent adults handle their own problems, and this was me handling mine. My mom cried that they just wanted me to learn life skills. I said I'd learned that when someone commits tax fraud, there are consequences. My dad threatened to cut me off from the family entirely. I reminded him they'd already done that, but still wanted the financial benefits of having a student daughter. The university contacted my dad's employer about the parent learning allowance misuse. His company launched an investigation since he'd been claiming the benefit while not providing the support it was meant for. He had to pay back 3 years of allowances and got formally reprimanded. The tax office started investigating their education credit claims. Craig testified that he'd advised them repeatedly that the money had to go toward education expenses, and they'd assured him in writing it did. My parents had to pay back thousands in false credits plus penalties. But the best part happened at my graduation. My parents showed up, acting like nothing had happened, ready to take photos and brag about their successful daughter. My mom has her phone out already, holding it up like we're about to take some happy family photo. She's got this big smile plastered on her face, the kind she uses when other people are watching. My dad stands next to her with his arms open, actually expecting me to walk over and give him a hug like the past few months never happened. Like they didn't cut me off on my birthday, and then commit fraud to keep getting money while I nearly ended up homeless. They're acting like this is normal, like showing up at my graduation makes everything okay. My mom waves at me, doing this little finger wiggle thing she always does when she wants me to come closer. My dad keeps his arms out, waiting. They're both smiling at me like I'm supposed to be grateful they showed up. I can see other families around us, all happy and taking photos, and my parents are trying to blend in like they belong here. Like they earned the right to celebrate with me after what they did. My mom takes a step forward, still holding her phone up, and I hear her say something about wanting to get a good shot before the lighting changes. My dad nods at me, this little encouraging nod like I'm 5 years old and need permission to do something. The whole thing makes my stomach turn because they really think this is going to work. They really believe I'll just go along with it, because that's what I've always done before. I turn away from them and walk straight toward where Craig is standing with Jess and her family. My mom calls out my name, this bright, cheerful voice that carries across the crowd. I keep walking. She calls again, louder this time, and I can hear the edge creeping into her tone. I don't look back. My feet keep moving toward the people who actually showed up for me these past months. The ones who didn't abandon me when things got hard. Jess sees me coming and her whole face lights up. Her mom is holding a big bunch of flowers and they're all smiling at me like they're genuinely happy to be here. Not because it makes them look good, but because they actually care. I hear my dad's voice behind me, not calling my name but saying something to my mom. His voice has that tight quality it gets when he's annoyed but trying not to show it in public. I catch the word dramatic and I know he's talking about me. Of course he thinks I'm being dramatic. That's always been his go-to response when I don't do exactly what he wants. Craig opens his arms when I reach him and pulls me into a real hug, the kind that feels safe and genuine. He squeezes my shoulders and tells me how proud he is of me, and I can hear in his voice that he means it. Jess's mom steps forward next, presenting me with the flowers and a card. She says something about how I deserve to celebrate properly, and when I open the card, there's a gift certificate for groceries tucked inside. My eyes get hot because this is what actual support looks like. These people have been more like family to me in the past few months than my parents have been in years. They helped me when I had nothing, when I was scared and alone and didn't know how I'd survive. They didn't make me beg or prove myself worthy. They just showed up. Jess hugs me next, squeezing tight and whispers that she's so glad I made it through everything. Her family clusters around us, all genuine smiles and congratulations, and for a second I let myself feel happy. I earned this degree despite everything my parents did to sabotage me. I survived their fraud and their abandonment, and I'm standing here in my cap and gown because I refuse to give up. My parents appear at the edge of our little group. I see them in my peripheral vision, hovering like they're waiting for an opening. My mom moves closer, and I hear her voice saying something about my cap and gown. How nice it looks, how proud she is. She's trying to wedge herself into our celebration, acting like she belongs here. Jess immediately steps between us, physically blocking my mom from getting any closer. Her voice is clear and firm when she speaks, telling my mom that this is a private celebration with people who actually supported me through university, not people who cut me off and committed fraud. My mom's smile wavers for just a second before she plasters it back on. She tries to laugh it off like Jess is joking, but Jess doesn't move. She stands there like a wall between me and my parents, and I feel this rush of gratitude for her. Jess's mom moves to stand next to her daughter, and suddenly there's this united front protecting me from my parents' attempt to bulldoze their way back into my life. My mom's face flushes red and she looks at me over Jess's shoulder, trying to make eye contact, trying to get me to tell them it's okay. My dad's expression changes completely. His mouth gets this tight, thin line, the one that means he's furious but trying to control it because people are watching. His public face is slipping and I can see the anger underneath. He steps up next to my mom and announces that they're my parents, and they have every right to be here. His voice is loud enough that a few nearby families glance over. He's trying to make Jess and her family look like the unreasonable ones, like they're the problem here. What he's conveniently forgetting is that they lost the right to be here when they chose to commit fraud, instead of actually supporting me. They lost it when they cut me off on my birthday with 11 days' notice. They lost it when they refused to give me documentation that would have helped me get emergency housing. They lost it when they decided to keep collecting money meant for my education, while leaving me to figure out how to survive on 400 pounds. My dad crosses his arms over his chest, still wearing that tight-lipped expression, and stares at Jess like he can intimidate her into backing down. But Jess doesn't budge. She just stares right back at him. I finally turn to face them directly. My voice comes out steadier than I expected when I ask why they're here. It's a simple question, but it hangs in the air between us. My mom does this nervous little laugh, the one she uses when she's uncomfortable but trying to pretend she's not. She says they wanted to celebrate my achievement, like it's the most obvious thing in the world. Like the past months of legal consequences and investigations and formal reprimands never happened. Like they didn't have to pay back thousands in false tax credits. Like my dad didn't get investigated by his employer for misusing the parent learning allowance. She's looking at me with this hopeful expression, waiting for me to accept her explanation and let them back in. My dad nods along with what she's saying, backing her up, both of them presenting this united front of concerned parents who just want to be part of their daughter's big day. The disconnect between their behavior and reality is so huge I almost can't process it. Craig speaks up quietly, suggesting that maybe we should discuss this somewhere more private, away from all the other families who are trying to celebrate. His voice is calm and reasonable, trying to diffuse the situation. My dad whips around to face him and all that controlled anger breaks through. He snaps that Craig betrayed the family, that he had no right to give me those documents, that he violated their trust. The irony is so thick I could choke on it. My dad is standing here accusing Craig of betrayal when he's the one who committed tax fraud. He's the one who claimed education benefits he wasn't actually providing. He's the one who lied to Craig repeatedly, assuring him in writing that all the money was going to my education when it wasn't. Craig just stands there, not rising to the bait, and I can see he's not going to engage with my dad's attempt to make himself the victim. My mom puts her hand on my dad's arm, trying to calm him down, probably worried about the scene they're making. But my dad shakes her off, still glaring at Craig like this is all his fault. A woman in a university staff vest approaches our group, her expression polite but concerned. She asks if there's a problem because we're blocking the main pathway where families are trying to walk through. My parents transform instantly. The anger disappears from my dad's face and he's suddenly all smiles and apologies. My mom does the same, laughing and saying they're so sorry. They just got caught up in the excitement of the day. They're masters at this, putting on whatever face the situation requires. They look like perfectly normal, caring parents who maybe got a little too enthusiastic about their daughter's graduation. The coordinator smiles back at them, clearly buying the act, and I feel sick watching them perform. This is what they do. This is who they are. They can look good while being terrible, and they've been doing it my whole life. I've watched them charm teachers and neighbors and family friends while treating me like a problem to be managed at home. The coordinator starts to turn away, satisfied that everything is fine. I speak up before she can leave, telling her that everything is fine and these people were just leaving. My voice is clear and carries across the space between us. The coordinator stops and looks back, a little confused now. My mom's smile falters and I see panic flash across her face. She reaches out and tries to grab my hand, her fingers closing around my wrist. She says we need to talk as a family about moving forward, about healing, about putting this all behind us. Her grip is tight and her voice has this pleading quality that she thinks will make me give in. She's always done this, used tears and desperation to manipulate me into doing what she wants. But I'm not the same person I was when she cut me off. I spent months learning to stand on my own, learning that I don't owe her compliance just because she's my mother. I pull my hand away from her grip and take a step back. The words come out clear and firm when I tell them they made their choice when they cut me off as a birthday gift, then doubled down by refusing to provide documentation that would have helped me. They chose fraud over their daughter. They chose to keep collecting money while I nearly ended up homeless. And now they want graduation photos for Facebook so they can pretend to everyone else that they're good parents. My mom's face crumples and tears start rolling down her cheeks. My dad's jaw clenches and his hands ball into fists at his sides. The coordinator is looking between all of us now, clearly realizing this is more complicated than she thought. Other families are definitely watching now. Their celebrations paused as they try to figure out what's happening with us. I don't care. I'm done protecting my parents' image at the expense of my own well-being. They wanted to teach me independence and I learned it, just not the way they intended. My dad's face goes red and he steps forward, getting close enough that I can smell the coffee on his breath. He says I'm being ungrateful after everything they sacrificed for me, his voice getting louder with each word. Jess actually laughs out loud, this sharp bark of disbelief that cuts through the tension. She steps up next to me and points out that they literally profited off claiming to support me while providing less than they received. Her voice is clear and carries to the families nearby who've stopped their own celebrations to watch. My dad's mouth opens and closes like he's trying to find words but can't. My mom grabs his arm again, harder this time, her nails digging into his jacket sleeve. Other families are definitely watching now, some trying to be subtle about it while others just stare openly. A woman in a purple dress whispers something to her husband, and they both look over at us. My mom's eyes dart around at all the faces turned our way, and I can see the panic setting in. She leans close to me and whispers urgently that we can discuss this later. She just wants one photo with her graduate daughter. Her voice is shaking and she's trying to smile, but it looks wrong, stretched too tight across her face. She reaches for my arm, but I pull back before she can touch me. I tell her no, because that photo would be a lie just like their tax returns were lies. The words come out steady and firm. Uncle Craig shifts his weight and adds that perhaps if they'd spent the past months trying to make amends instead of fighting the consequences, this conversation would be different. His voice is calm, but there's steel underneath it. My mom's face crumples and tears start rolling down her cheeks. The same manipulation tactic she's used my whole life. She says she never meant to hurt me and just wanted me to learn independence, her voice breaking on the last word. Jess's mom steps forward and I've never seen such a cold expression on her face before. She looks at my mom and says that cutting off a student mid-semester isn't teaching independence. It's financial abuse. The words land like stones and my mom actually flinches. My dad's hands curl into fists at his sides and he says, if I can't forgive them and move past this, he'll leave and never speak to me again. It's the same threat he's used since I was a kid. The same pattern of control. I look him right in the eye and tell him that's been his pattern all along. Threatening abandonment to control me, and I'm done being controlled by people who see me as a tax deduction. His face goes from red to almost purple, and for a second I think he might actually explode. The ceremony coordinator comes back, and this time she has a security guard with her. A tall guy in a uniform who looks between all of us with a neutral expression. My parents immediately shift gears, their faces transforming into masks of hurt confusion. My mom wipes her tears and tells the coordinator I'm refusing to let them celebrate my graduation after they worked so hard to put me through school. Her voice is all wounded innocence now, like she's the victim here. My dad nods along and adds that they don't understand what they did wrong. They just want to be part of their daughter's special day. Uncle Craig reaches into his jacket pocket and pulls out his phone. He tells the coordinator very calmly that he can show her the tax documents proving they actually profited from my education while claiming hardship. He starts to swipe through his phone and my dad's face goes bright red again. He practically shouts at Craig to put that away, his voice cracking. The security guard's expression shifts slightly, more alert now. I turn to him and say clearly that these people are not welcome in my celebration, and I'd like them to leave. My mom gasps like I've physically struck her, her hand flying to her chest. The guard nods once and asks my parents to exit the ceremony area. My dad makes one last attempt at control, stepping closer and saying, "I'll regret this when I need help in the future," and realize family is all that matters. I don't back away this time. I respond that I've learned family isn't about DNA. It's about who shows up when you actually need them, and they failed that test completely. The security guard gestures toward the exit, and my parents have no choice but to turn and walk away. My mom is still crying, and my dad is talking loudly about disrespectful children, making sure everyone can hear him. Other families are definitely watching, some looking uncomfortable, others nodding like they understand. I feel my face get hot with embarrassment, but underneath that is something else, something lighter. It's like I've finally cut a cord that's been strangling me for years, and I can breathe properly for the first time. Uncle Craig touches my shoulder and asks if I'm okay. I take a second to check in with myself and realize I actually am okay. My hands aren't shaking anymore. My voice was steady when I spoke to my parents, and I didn't back down or let them manipulate me into pretending everything was fine. I nod and tell him I'm good. Better than I've been in a long time. He smiles and says he can see that, and I believe him because I feel different now. Something shifted when I stood up to them in front of everyone. When I finally stopped caring about their public image and just told the truth. Jess wraps her arms around me in a huge hug and says that was the most badass thing she's ever seen. Her mom comes over too and agrees that setting boundaries with toxic family members takes incredible strength. She says most people never manage it. They just keep letting themselves get hurt over and over. I feel validated in a way my parents never made me feel. Like these people actually see me and respect what I just did. Jess pulls back and grins at me. Her eyes a bit watery, and I realize I'm smiling too. We take photos together, just me and my chosen family who actually earned the right to be in my graduation memories. Uncle Craig stands on one side, Jess and her mom on the other, and we all squeeze together while another graduate's dad offers to take the picture. Uncle Craig jokes that these are the only photos that matter anyway because they're honest ones, and everyone laughs. I look at the camera and my smile is real, not the forced one I would have worn if my parents had gotten their way. We take a few more shots, silly ones where we make faces, and serious ones where we look proper and each one feels genuine. Other families are milling around taking their own photos, and nobody seems to care about the scene from earlier. The ceremony coordinator walks past and gives me a small nod, like she approves of how things turned out. Later at the graduation reception in the university hall, several of my professors come over to congratulate me. The room is packed with graduates and their families, everyone balancing plates of food and glasses of wine. My statistics professor shakes my hand and says he always knew I'd make it through. Then the one who helped me navigate extensions when everything fell apart approaches, and she asks if I'm all right. She mentions she heard I had some family drama today, and wants to make sure I'm doing okay. I assure her I'm fine and actually relieved to have finally stood up to my parents instead of letting them pretend their fraud and abandonment never happened. She nods slowly and shares that she went through something similar with her own family years ago, that it gets easier with time. She says the hardest part is accepting that some people won't change no matter how much you want them to, but the freedom that comes after is worth it. We talk for a few more minutes about my plans for next year, and she congratulates me again before moving on to speak with other students. Jess finds me near the food table and introduces me to some of her family members who drove up for the ceremony. Her aunt is a cheerful woman with the same bright smile as Jess, and her uncle is quieter but warm. They're all welcoming and friendly, asking about my studies and my plans. Her aunt even jokes that they're adopting me into their family since mine is clearly defective. Everyone laughs, and I feel this warmth spread through my chest, this sense of belonging I never quite had with my own relatives. Her mom mentions they're all going out to dinner later and insists I come along, won't take no for an answer. Uncle Craig pulls me aside near the windows overlooking the campus lawn and mentions that my parents have been calling him non-stop since security removed them. His phone has been buzzing in his pocket all afternoon. He asks if I want him to relay any message, and I tell him the only message is that I'm done with their manipulation and they need to respect my boundaries. He nods and says he'll tell them exactly that. He says he's proud of how I handled things today and that standing up to family is one of the hardest things anyone can do. Most people never manage it, he adds. They just keep taking whatever their family dishes out. He also mentions he's been setting his own boundaries with them, refusing to do their taxes anymore after they lied to him about the education expenses. He says he can't work with people who make him complicit in fraud, even if they're family. I thank him for everything he's done, for being the one family member who actually showed up when I needed help. He waves it off, but I can tell he's pleased. We stand there for a minute watching the celebration, and I realize this is what support actually looks like. That evening back at the flat, my phone starts buzzing with texts. I'm sitting on the couch with Jess, both of us still in our graduation gowns because we haven't bothered to change yet. I pull out my phone and see a series of messages from my mom. The first one says I humiliated them in public and ruined what should have been a happy family moment. The second says I destroyed my own graduation day by causing a scene. The third says I broke her heart by choosing strangers over family. They keep coming, alternating between guilt trips about how much they sacrificed for me and anger about how disrespectful I was. One message says I'll regret this when I'm older and realize what I threw away. Another says they just wanted to celebrate with me and I turned it into a nightmare. I scroll through them all without responding, which feels powerful in itself. Jess reads them over my shoulder and points out that my mom is making my graduation entirely about her feelings rather than acknowledging what they did wrong. She's right. Every single message is about their pain, their embarrassment, their disappointment. Not once does my mom mention the fraud, or the way they cut me off, or any of the actual reasons I'm angry. Jess asks if I'm going to respond, and I shake my head. There's nothing to say that I haven't already said, and engaging with them now would just give them another opening to manipulate me. My phone buzzes again with another message, but I silence it and toss it onto the coffee table. Jess suggests we order pizza and watch something mindless, and that sounds perfect. Watching something mindless sounds perfect. We end up choosing some cooking competition show where everything is dramatic but nothing actually matters, which feels exactly right for the moment. The next 2 months pass in a blur of summer work, and settling into the rhythm of actually having money I earned myself. I pick up shifts at the campus library and start a research assistant position that pays decently. Jess and I find a proper flat for when my master's program starts. Nothing fancy but ours, and we spend weekends painting the walls and picking up secondhand furniture. Uncle Craig helps us move in and brings a housewarming gift of kitchen supplies because he knows we're both useless at remembering practical things. Life feels stable in a way it never did when I was dependent on my parents, even though I'm working harder than I ever have. Then in late August, my mom's email arrives. I'm sitting at my desk organizing files for the research project when the notification pops up. The subject line says we need to talk, and my stomach tightens, but I open it anyway. She's written this long message about how she's been seeing a therapist since graduation and has done a lot of reflecting on their parenting choices. She says they handled my transition to independence poorly and should have been more supportive during a difficult time. The whole thing is full of therapy language about growth and learning, but nowhere does she mention the fraud or the money they pocketed or the fact that they claimed benefits while cutting me off. She frames everything as a parenting mistake, like they were just trying tough love and miscalculated, completely ignoring the actual criminal behavior. I read through it twice, feeling my anger build with each carefully worded paragraph that centers her feelings and her journey. I start typing a response immediately, fingers flying over the keyboard as I list everything she's refusing to acknowledge. I write about the £13,000 they collected while spending only 8, about the tax credits they filed claiming to support me through my entire 3rd year, about how they refused to provide documentation that would have helped me get emergency aid. I write about the nights I spent terrified I'd be homeless, about applying for 20 jobs in 3 days, about crying over my laptop trying to figure out how to survive. The response gets longer and angrier until it's nearly as long as her email, and then I stop myself. I save it as a draft instead of sending it and close my laptop. The next morning, I have an appointment with the university counselor I've been seeing since everything happened. She's been helpful in sorting through the mess of emotions around my parents, and I bring my laptop to show her both emails. She reads my mom's message first, nodding slowly, then reads my unsent response. When she finishes, she looks up and asks what I notice about the difference between them. I tell her my response addresses specific actions, while my mom's email talks in vague generalities. The counselor agrees and points out that my mom's email is what she calls a non-apology, something that looks like taking responsibility, but actually centers the apologizer's feelings rather than acknowledging harm to the other person. She walks me through the email line by line, showing me how my mom makes everything about her therapy journey and her growth, without once asking how I'm doing or what I need. There's no mention of making things right, no acknowledgement of the actual fraud, just a lot of words about learning and reflection. The counselor suggests an exercise where I write down what a real apology and actual amends would look like, not to send to my parents, but to clarify my own boundaries and needs. I spend the session writing it out, and it helps me see what's been missing. A real apology would acknowledge the fraud specifically, would recognize the fear and stress they caused, would offer to return the money they profited. Real amends would respect my boundaries without guilt trips, would give me space to decide if and when I want contact, would stop trying to rewrite history to make themselves look better. Writing it all down makes me realize I'm not asking for anything unreasonable, just basic accountability and respect. I spend a few days thinking about whether to respond at all. Part of me wants to ignore the email completely, but another part knows I'll regret not stating my boundaries clearly. I eventually write a brief response, maybe 3 paragraphs compared to her pages. I tell her I'm willing to consider rebuilding a relationship if they take full responsibility for the fraud, make financial restitution for the money they profited, and respect my need for space without guilt-tripping or manipulation. I keep it factual and unemotional, just laying out the conditions. I don't expect them to meet these requirements, but at least I've been clear about what accountability actually looks like. I hit send before I can overthink it, and then close my email. My dad's response comes in less than an hour. I'm in the kitchen making lunch when my phone buzzes and I see his name. The email is short and angry, calling me ridiculous and vindictive for demanding money from them. He writes that the tax credits and allowances were their money for raising me, that they spent 20 years supporting me and I'm being ungrateful. He completely misses the point that they claimed current support they weren't providing, that they filed for benefits specifically meant for my education while cutting me off. His response actually makes everything easier because it confirms they still don't understand what they did wrong. They still think this is about me being spoiled or entitled rather than about fraud and broken trust. I don't reply to his email and I don't feel guilty about it, which shows me how much I've grown since February. I forward both emails to Uncle Craig so he knows what's happening, Then I delete them from my inbox. The next few weeks are busy with preparing for my master's program to start. Jess and I get the flat completely set up. I attend orientation sessions, I meet my faculty advisor, and get my course schedule. Starting classes feels exciting in a way undergraduate never did, because I chose this path for myself, not because my parents expected it. I'm studying something I'm actually passionate about, and I'm paying for it through my own work and legitimate financial aid. Uncle Craig comes over for dinner once I'm settled into the semester, bringing wine and asking about my courses. We've established this monthly dinner tradition where we cook together and catch up, and it feels more like real family than any holiday meal with my parents ever did. In my graduate seminars, I meet other students and we start forming study groups and friendships. One evening after class, a few of us go out for drinks, and somehow the conversation turns to family drama. One guy talks about his parents' messy divorce and how they both tried to use him as a weapon against each other. Another woman shares that her mom hasn't spoken to her in 2 years because she chose a different career than what her mom wanted. Someone else describes parents who controlled everything through money and guilt. I realize how common it is to have complicated family relationships, to have to set boundaries with parents who can't acknowledge their mistakes. It helps to know I'm not alone in this, that other people understand what it's like to choose your own well-being over family expectations. The holidays approach faster than I expect. November turns cold, and campus fills with decorations and talk of everyone's plans. In early December, a card arrives at our flat addressed to me in my mom's handwriting. The return address is my parents' house, which means someone in the family gave them my new address. I open it standing in our tiny entryway while Jess watches from the kitchen. Inside is a generic card with a snowy scene and a printed message about warm wishes. My mom has added a handwritten note saying they hope I'm well and thinking of me during the holidays. There's no acknowledgement of anything that happened, no reference to my email or their responses, no attempt at actual accountability, just this surface-level pleasantry like we're distant acquaintances rather than family members with serious unresolved issues. I show it to Jess and she rolls her eyes, pointing out that they're still trying to maintain appearances without doing any real work. I put the card in a drawer and don't send one back. When the actual holidays arrive, I spend them with Jess's family at their house a few hours away. Her mom picks us both up from campus, and the drive is full of easy conversation and laughter. Her family's house is warm and decorated and smells like cooking, and everyone genuinely seems happy to see us. Her mom hugs me when we arrive and jokes that she always wanted another daughter, and I feel this warmth spread through me that has nothing to do with the fireplace. We spend the evening cooking together, playing board games, watching movies on their enormous couch. Nobody asks invasive questions about my parents or tries to fix my family situation. They just include me like I belong there, which is such a contrast to the tense conditional love I grew up with where everything depended on meeting my parents' expectations. Jess's younger brother teaches me some card game, and her dad tells terrible jokes that make everyone groan. Her aunt asks about my studies with genuine interest, and her grandmother insists on sending me home with containers of leftovers. This is what family is supposed to feel like, I think. People who show up without strings attached, who care about your well-being more than their own image. When I get back to the flat after the holidays, there's a message from Uncle Craig asking if I can meet him for coffee the next week. We meet at a cafe near campus on a cold January morning, and after we order, he mentions something that happened over the holidays. My parents asked him if I'd be willing to meet them for coffee sometime in the new year. He told them they need to communicate directly with me and respect whatever boundaries I set, which apparently they didn't take well. My mom got upset and said he was encouraging me to cut them out of my life. My dad accused him of turning me against them. Craig says he made it clear that wasn't his job to be their messenger, that they're adults who can reach out to me themselves if they're willing to respect my conditions. I appreciate that Craig maintains his own boundaries with them while still being supportive of me. He's shown me what healthy family relationships can look like, where people respect each other's choices and don't use guilt or manipulation to get their way. He asks how my classes are going, and we spend the rest of our time talking about my research project and his plans to take a trip to Scotland in the spring. It feels good to have conversations that aren't about my parents or their drama, to just exist as people who care about each other without all the complicated history. By spring, I'm thriving in my master's program in ways I never expected. My supervisor offers me a promotion to a better-paying research position that comes with more responsibility and the chance to work on a project I'm genuinely excited about. I'm saving money for the first time in my life, not just surviving paycheck to paycheck, but actually building something for myself. The flat Jess and I share feels like home in a way my parents' house never did, full of our mismatched furniture and inside jokes and the freedom to just be ourselves. I'm genuinely happy with my life in a way I never was when I was dependent on my parents, when every decision had to be filtered through their approval and every achievement was somehow about them. My grades are strong, my research is going well, and I have friends who actually support me instead of tearing me down. One afternoon in March, I get a Facebook message from a family friend I haven't spoken to in years. She says my parents miss me and asks if there's anything that could help repair the relationship. I take a few hours to think about my response before typing it out. I explain honestly that until they acknowledge the fraud and make genuine amends, there's nothing to repair because they're still living in denial about what they did. I tell her they cut me off, committed tax fraud, refused to help me when I was desperate, and then showed up at my graduation acting like none of it happened. Any reconciliation would require them to take full responsibility, return the money they profited, and respect my boundaries without guilt trips or manipulation. The friend responds a few days later saying she understands my position but seems uncomfortable with my directness. She suggests maybe I should be the bigger person and reach out first, that parents make mistakes and family is important. I politely explain that being the bigger person doesn't mean accepting abuse or fraud, and I've already stated my boundaries clearly in multiple emails they chose to ignore. I tell her I'm not interested in a relationship built on pretending their actions were acceptable, or that I should just get over it for the sake of family harmony. She doesn't respond after that, and I'm okay with it. I'm done explaining myself to people who think maintaining family appearances is more important than accountability. That evening, Jess and I are making dinner together when she brings up something she's noticed. She says I seem so much more confident and relaxed than when we first met, when I was constantly anxious about my parents' approval and second-guessing every decision. She's right, and I tell her so. I've stopped trying to earn love from people who treated it as conditional on my compliance. Stopped twisting myself into shapes that might finally make them proud. The relief of not carrying that weight anymore is incredible. Like I can finally breathe properly for the first time in years. In April, Uncle Craig calls to tell me something important. He's officially cut financial ties with my parents and referred them to another accountant. He says he can't in good conscience continue working with people who lied to him professionally and treated family so poorly. They apparently got angry when he told them, accused him of abandoning them just like I did, but he stood firm. He says working with them had become uncomfortable anyway, because they kept trying to use their tax appointments to ask about me and complain about how I was treating them. His decision validates my own boundaries and shows me that other people see the situation clearly too. I'm not crazy or vindictive for refusing to pretend their fraud and abandonment were acceptable. Craig is making his own choice based on their behavior, completely independent of my relationship with them, which somehow makes it even more meaningful. It's proof that their actions have consequences beyond just losing me, that other people can see through their victim narrative. As my first year of graduate school ends, I find myself thinking about how much my life has changed since that phone call on my 20th birthday. What my parents intended as a punishment, a harsh lesson in independence, actually freed me from their control and manipulation. They wanted me to struggle and come crawling back, grateful for whatever scraps of support they were willing to provide. Instead, I built a life without them, found people who actually care about my well-being, and learned what real support looks like. I've learned that real independence isn't about being cut off and struggling alone, it's about building a life based on real relationships and honest work. My parents taught me what not to do, and that's valuable in its own way. They showed me exactly how not to treat people you claim to love, how not to use money as a weapon, how not to prioritize appearances over actual relationships. I wouldn't choose to go through it again, but I can't deny that I'm stronger and happier now than I was when I was dependent on them. Jess and I sit at our kitchen table with the lease renewal paperwork spread between us, and I sign my name next to hers without any of the anxiety that would have gripped me a year ago. The flat is ours for another 12 months, and I've already accepted the summer research position in the psychology department that pays £15 an hour. My supervisor called yesterday to confirm I'd be working 20 hours a week analyzing data from their cognition studies, which means steady income through the summer months when most students struggle. I'm building a career on my own merit, publishing my name on research papers and getting invited to present at conferences, and the pride I feel has nothing to do with anyone's approval except my own. The money I earn goes directly into my account. No strings attached, no guilt trips about how much I'm costing anyone, or lectures about learning to be grateful. Uncle Craig picks me up outside the library on a warm evening in late May, and we drive to his favorite Italian restaurant to celebrate my first year of graduate school completion. He orders wine and raises his glass to toast my achievements, and I feel the warmth of genuine family support that has nothing to do with obligation or appearances. Over pasta, he mentions casually that my parents reached out to him again last week asking about reconciliation possibilities. He told them the ball is entirely in their court and requires genuine accountability, not the performance of reconciliation they seem to want. They apparently didn't like that answer much, and tried to argue that they've apologized enough, which proves they still don't understand what a real apology looks like. Craig says he's done being their messenger or mediator because they keep trying to use him to avoid taking actual responsibility for their fraud and abandonment. I tell him honestly that I'm genuinely happy with my life exactly as it is right now. While I'm not opposed to reconciliation someday, it would require them to fundamentally change how they view our relationship and treat me like an actual person, rather than an extension of themselves. I'm not holding my breath waiting for that transformation, but I'm also not bitter about it anymore. The anger that used to keep me up at night has faded into something calmer, more like acceptance that some people can't give you what you need no matter how much you want them to. Craig nods and says that's probably the healthiest attitude I could have, and he's proud of how I've handled an impossible situation with grace and strength. Looking ahead to my second year of graduate school starting in September, I feel genuinely excited and confident about my future, in a way I never did when I was dependent on my parents. I've built a support system of people who genuinely care about me without conditions or strings. I'm financially stable through my own work and scholarships, and I've learned the hard way that sometimes the best thing you can do for yourself is walk away from people who refuse to treat you with basic respect. My parents wanted to teach me independence as some kind of harsh lesson, cutting me off on my birthday, and expecting me to come crawling back grateful for whatever scraps they'd offer. Instead, I learned real independence, the kind that comes from building your own life and surrounding yourself with people who show up when things get hard. They taught me what not to do, and in their own twisted way, that might be the most valuable lesson they ever gave me.